So far we have seen the power of just using a simple multi-layer perceptron solving of problems, but you can take things up a notch. You can arrange more complicated neural networks together and do more complicated problems with them. So let's start by talking about convolution neural networks, or CNN for short. Usually you hear about CNNs in the context of image analysis, and their whole point is to find things in your data that might not be exactly where you expect it to. So technically we call this feature location invariant. That means that if you are looking for some pattern or some features in your data, but you don't know how exactly it might be in your data, a CNN can scan your data and find those patterns for you wherever they might be. So for example, in this picture here, that stop sign could be anywhere in the image, and CNN is able to find that stop sign no matter where it might be. Now it is not just limited to image analysis. It can also be used for any sort of problems where you don't know where the features you are located within your data, and machine translation or natural language processing tests come to mind for that. You don't necessarily know where the nouns or the verb or phrase you care about might be in some paragraph or sentence you are analyzing, but CNN can find it and pick it out for you. Sentiment analysis is another application of CNN. So you might not know exactly where a phrase might be that indicates some happy sentiments or some frustrated sentiment or whatever you might be anxious, but CNN can scan your data and pluck it out, and you will see that the idea behind it is not really as complicated as it sounds. This is another example of using fancy words to make things seem more complicated than they really are. So how do they work? Well, CNN's convolutional neural networks are inspired by the biology of your visual cortex. It takes cues from how your brain actually processes images from your retina, and it's pretty cool, and it's also another example of interesting emergent behavior. So the way your eyes work is that individual groups of neurons service a specific part of your field of vision. So we call these local receptive fields. They are just groups of neurons responding to a part of what your eye see. It samples the images coming in front of your retinas and just has specialized groups of neurons for processing specific parts of the field of view that you see with your eyes. Now these little areas overlap each other to cover your entire visual field, and this is called convolution. Convolution is just a fancy word of saying I'm going to break up this data into little chunks and process those chunks individually, and then they will assemble a bigger picture of what you are seeing higher up in the chain. So the way it works within your brain is that you might have many layers. It is deep neural network that identifies various complexities of features, if you will. So the first layer that you go into from your convolutional neural network inside your head might just identify horizontal lines or lines at different angles, or specific cutlines of aging. We call these filters, and that might fit into a layer above them that would then assemble those lines that it identified at the lower level into shapes, and maybe there is a layer above that would be able to recognize objects based on the patterns of shapes that you see. And then if you are dealing with color images, we have to have specialized cells within your retina for detecting red, green and blue light, and we need to assemble those together as well. Those each get processed individually too. So that's all our CNN is, just taking a source image or source data of any sort, really breaking it up into little chunks called convolutions, and then we assemble those and look for patterns at increasingly higher complexities at higher levels in your neural network. So how does your brain know that you are looking at a stop sign? Let's talk about this in more colloquial language if we will. So like we said, you have individual local receptive fields that are responsible for processing specific parts of what you see, and those local receptive fields are scanning your image and they overlap with each other looking for edges. You might notice that your brain is very sensitive to contrast and edges that it sees in the world. Those tend to catch your contrast. That's why the letters on this slide catch your attention, because there's high contrast between the letters and the white background behind them. So at a very low level, you are picking at the edges of that stop sign and the edges of the letters on the stop sign. Now a higher level might take those edges and recognize the shapes of that stop sign, says, oh, there's an octagon there, that means something special to me, or those letters form the word stop, special to me too, and ultimately that will get matched against whatever classification pattern your brain has a stop sign. So no matter where receptive fields picked up that stop sign at some layer, it will be recognized as a stop sign. And furthermore, because you are processing data in color, and you can also use the information that the stop sign is read and further use that to aid in his classification of what this object really is. So somewhere in your head there is a neural network that says, hey, if I see edges arranged in an octagon pattern that has a lot of red in it and says stop in the middle, that means I should probably hit the brakes on my car. And it's some even higher level where your brain is actually doing higher reasoning. That's what happened. There's a wire that says, hey, there's a stop sign coming up here, I better hit this. If you have been driving long enough, you don't even like it, do you? Let's almost, and that's literally maybe the case. Anyway, a convolutional neural network and artificial convolutional neural network works the same way, same exact idea. So how do you build a CNN with Keras? Obviously, you probably don't want to do this at the low level TensorFlow layer. You can, but CNNs get pretty complicated. A high level library like Keras becomes essential. First of all, you need to make sure your source data is of the appropriate dimensions of shapes, if you will, and you are going to presenting the actual 2D structure of an image. If you are dealing with image data here, so the shapes of your data might be the width times the length times the number of color channels. And by color channels, I mean, if it is a black and white image, there is only one color, black and white, to only have one color channel for a grayscale image. But it is a color image, you have three color channels, one for red, one for green, and one for blue, because you can create any color by combining red, green, and blue together. Now there are some specialized types of layers in Keras that you use when you are dealing with convolutional neural networks. For example, there is the conv 2D layer type that does the actual convolution on a 2D image. And again, convolution is just breaking up that image into little subfields that overlap each other for individual processing. There is also a conv 1D and conv 3D layer available as well. You don't have to use CNNs with images like we said. It can also be used with the text data. For example, there might be an example of one-dimensional data, and it's also conv 3D layer available as well if you are dealing with 3D volumetric data of some sort. So a lot of possibilities there. Another specialized layer in Keras for CNN is max pooling 2D. Obviously, there is a 1D and 3D variant of that as well. The idea of that is used to reduce the size of your data down. So if I take just the maximum value seen in a given block of an image and reduce it to a layer down to those maximum values, is just a way of shrinking the images in such a way that it can reduce the processing load on the CNNs. As you see, processing CNN is very computing intensive, and the more you can do to reduce the work you have to do, the better. So if you have more data in your image, then you need a max pooling 2D layer can be useful for distilling that down to the bare essence of what you need to analyze. Finally, at some point you need to feed this data into a flat layer of neurons, right? At some point it's just going to go into a perceptron, and at this stage we need to flatten that 2D layer into a 1D layer, so we can just pass it into a layer of neurons, and from that point it's just looking like any other multi-layer perceptron. So the magic of CNNs really happens at a lower level. You know, ultimately it gets converted into what looks like the same types of multi-layer perceptron that we have been using before. The magic happens in actually processing your data, convolving it and reducing it down to something that's manageable. So typical usage of image processing with a CNN would look like this. You might start with a conv 2D layer that does the actual convolution of your image data. You might follow that up with a max pooling 2D layer on top of that distills that image down, just shrinks the amount of data that you have to deal with. You might then do a dropout layer on top of that, which just prevents overfitting like we talked about before. And at that point you might apply a flatten layer to actually be able to feed that data into a perceptron, and that's where a dense layer might come into play. So a dense layer in Keras is just a perceptron really. You know, it's a layer of a hidden layer of neurons. From there we might do another dropout pass to further prevent overfitting, and finally do a soft max to choose the final classification that comes out of your neural network. And like I said, CNNs are compute intensive. They are very heavy in your CPU, your GPU and your memory requirements. Shuffling all that data around and convolving it adds up really fast. And beyond that, there's a lot of what we call hyperparameters, a lot of different knobs and dials to your, you can adjust and CNN. So in addition to the usual stuff, you can tune like the typology of your neural network, or what you optimizer you use, so what loss function you use or what activation function you use. There is also choices to make about the kernel sizes, that is the area that you actually convolve across. How many layers do you have, how many units do you have, or how much pooling do you have when you are reducing the image down. There's a lot of variance here. That's almost an infinite amount of possibility there for configuring a CNN, and often just containing the data to train your CNN with is the hardest part. So for example, if you own a Tesla that's actually taking picture of the world around you and the road around you and all the street signs and traffic lights as you drive, and very night it sends all those images back to some data, so Tesla can actually run training on its own neural networks based on the data. So if you slam on the brakes while you are driving a Tesla at night, that information is going to be fed into a big data count center somewhere, and Tesla is going to crunch on that and say, hey, is there a problem here to learn of what I saw from the cameras from the car. That means you should slam on the brakes. In the case of a self-driving car, and you think about the scope of that problem, just the sheer magnitude of processing and obtaining and analyzing all that data, that becomes very challenging in and of itself. Now, fortunately, the problem of tuning the parameters does not have to be as hard as I described it to. There are specialized architectures of convolutional neural network that do some of that work for you. So a lot of research goes into trying to find the optimal typologies and parameters for a CNN for a given type of problem, and you can just think this is like a library you can draw from. So for example, there is the LeNet 5 architecture that you can use, that's suitable for handwriting recognition in particular. There is also one called AlexNet, which is appropriate for image classification. It's a deeper neural network than LeNet. So in the example we talked about on the previous slides, we only had a single hidden layer. But you can have as many as you. It's just a matter of how much computational power you have available. There also, you can probably guess who came up with its 7 deeper, but it has better performance because it introduces this concept called inception modules. It basically group convolutional layers together, and that's a useful optimization for how it is all works. Finally, the most sophisticated one today is called ResNet, that stands for residual network. It's an even deeper neural network, but it maintains performance by what's called skip connections. So it has a special connections between the layers of the perceptron to further accelerate things. So sort of like builds upon the fundamentals architecture of a neural network to optimize its performance. And as you will see, CNNs can be very demanding on performance. So with that, let's give it a try. Let's actually use a CNN